Everyone, Matt here from Doc Training, and today we're going to do a sub 3 on the HOKA Stinson 7. So this is HOKA's kind of hybrid road trail shoe, hiking shoe, doing a little bit of everything, super maximal stack height shoe. I've actually never run in a Stinson before. I've tried it on in store, but when they sent this to me, I was a little intimidated by the weight, but I actually really enjoyed this, and I want to talk to you about why. So let's first start off with the specs that intimidated me, which is this is 12.1 ounces for men's size 9, 10.6 ounces for women's size 8. There's a 43.5 stack height in the heel, 38.5 in the forefoot for a 5mm drop. There is a ton of foam. There's good lugs on the outsole, which still actually work fairly well on road too, just because I think this thing is so tall you don't feel it. So previous versions of this felt a little bit narrow. They're very heavy, and yeah, it was just not something I was ever interested in. But when HOKA sent this to us, I put it on. I was like, well, the fit was really good. So fit wise, the forefoot is actually pretty wide, and so is the midfoot. You can see I had to lock the laces down a little bit. Once I did that, I didn't have any trouble, but it's a little wider fit. So people that are on longer efforts, if your foot swells, it's great. The volume is just a little lower, but fortunately the upper stretches. There's lots of overlays here that are very protective, and I ran in plenty of places that were gnarly trails, and I had no issues, didn't rip the upper up. So tough upper, which is great, but also comfortable with plenty of room, which is something HOKA doesn't always do a great job of until recently. Now, lots of wider forefoot here. So if you need that, it's gonna be really good. There is a stiff heel counter, lots of padding in the rear foot, so fortunately it didn't bother me. Those are sensitive, be aware of that. But fit-wise, just a little bit wider for those that need a little bit more room if you're doing longer stuff on the trail. Let's get to the midsole, that's where it was really interesting, because I didn't know what to expect, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's so heavy. But it's so well rockered, it rolls along really, really nicely. So yeah, trying to run really fast in the shoe, not a thing, okay? It's for easy miles, for long miles, for recovery miles. As for hiking, it works really, really well. I've done some hikes in this stuff, done really, really good. Even between road and trail, like I said, works great. You're not gonna feel much of anything underfoot, which is nice. You don't need a rock plate. There's also no flexibility at all because of how tall the stack height is. And yeah, it's not a super mushy shoe, but it's a very cushioned shoe. And it's just, underfoot has a teeny bit of firmness. And I think that comes from this new H-frame thing. And I want to talk about this because that's the same thing they're using in the new Gavoida 5, which is their stability shoe. They got rid of their J-frame, and they're using the same thing here, which makes sense because if you have a super tall shoe, the taller a shoe is, the more inherently unstable it is. And you have to be able to offset that. So typically a lot of these shoes have super wide soles, which this one certainly does. Grip is really great. Again, by the way, grips on a variety of surfaces. Not the most aggressive thing, but does grip really well. So again, wider sole, which adds stability and contact area, which is great for a trail shoe. The other things you need to think about is stuff like sidewalls, which this does have, and making sure that your foot doesn't roll off, right? Because again, taller, less stable. So wider sole does really good. The H-frame, apparently, it's not a ton of information, so I've had to do my research on this, and I should have just reached out to HOKA and asked, it's basically this frame around the foot that kind of is like a figure 8, where it's got sidewalls in the forefoot, sidewalls in the heel, they're a little stiffer, and come up pretty high. And then there's a piece in the midfoot that comes in that connects it, almost looks like a figure 8. So kind of similar to stuff like what the Saucony Tempest has done. It's kind of got railing that kind of guides you. If you fall one direction, the other one keeps you centered. So it's not a stability shoe, but it's a guidance shoe that keeps you centered without being aggressive. So if you have trouble with sidewalls, this is going to be a little tough because I know people sometimes have some issues with the sidewalls in HOKA for blisters, but if you like those and that creates a stable ride for you, you're going to love this. And I felt totally stable in this shoe and totally guided without getting pushed in one direction while still having a nice stable midfoot too, based on that piece coming along. So that's what the H-frame is. So it's very cool to see that in a trail shoe. So if you need stability, guidance in a trail shoe, this might be a really good option for you, but it's just a sturdy shoe. Not going to wear it anytime soon, can handle anything you throw at it. It has a little wider fit. So if that's something you're looking for in a trail shoe and you don't mind a little bit of extra weight, this might be a good shoe for you. That was not a sub 3. I guess this is just a review.